Let's bring you this now. An import-export business is warning that rolling power blackouts are causing imported food products to suffer transport delays. Port Elizabeth-based Hume International is a local leader in the importation and distribution of frozen as well as other food products. And there are fears that these delays might further inflate already soaring food prices and further lead to food insecurity if frozen foods are delayed from reaching cold storage facilities. So to talk more about this, we're now joined by the founder and MD of Hume International, Fred Hume. Thank you so much for your time, Fred, and good morning to you. You are quoted as saying that it seems the local food companies are fighting a raging war. Take me through what this war is looking like at the moment.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity, to share our views. South Africa is facing unique challenges. Apart from rising food costs globally due to rising fuel costs, the impact of the war on Ukraine on basic animal and human foodstuffs, we are also facing unique local challenges such as failing port infrastructure, overburdened, congested roads, the impact of load shedding. Yes.
Yeah. And what do you think it would take then to, sort of have this war ending?
Well, certainly what would help would be government could lift tariffs and duties that they've recently imposed on many basic foodstuffs, even if this was a temporary suspension, just to alleviate, and possibly to deflect some of these rising costs. That would certainly assist, and also if they would grant some emergency concessions, one of which would be to increase the number, or to allow us in the port of Gqeberha to increase the number of daily unpacks. We are being considered as a secondary port, and as a result of that, we are limited in the number of unpacks we're able to conduct daily, forcing us then to channel more goods through already congested ports such as Durban.
Yeah. I want to talk about the cost to damage here, and you talk about the port of damage. When we talk about the cost of damage to infrastructure, what's that estimated to look like?
Excuse me, would you mind repeating that?
Yeah, just the cost of damage to infrastructure, for example, in the port of Durban you've just made mention of. Do you know the cost of damage to the port and what it's looking like, especially when we come at the back of the April and May floods that we've all seen in KZN?
I wouldn't be able to put a number to it, but I can assure you it runs to several billions of rands. This has severely curtailed the number of moves that the port is able to process on an hourly basis. Much of the road infrastructure is under pressure. Commercial cold stores in the region have been damaged.
Yeah. Transportation delays, this is something else that you've been, lamenting, of course, forcing companies to rather store food at cold store facilities on average 7 to 10 days longer. I'm sure definitely there's a cost to that as well, to industry.
Certainly. This cost runs to several thousands of rands per container per day. And it has hampered us and forced us to store these goods for up to between 7 to 10 days longer than would normally have been the case. It's just further restricting the supply of food to the end consumer.
Yeah. Fred, what has been your strategy just in terms of, maneuvering through the power crisis that we're going through right now? I'm sure even with load shedding being, a company that, highly depends on, cold storage facilities working all the time, every time. What's been your alternative during this time?
Well, we have invested in solar power at our cold storage facility in Gqeberha. This has to some extent alleviated the cost of using diesel power, by generator to maintain our cold chains. But certainly we still are forced to rely on diesel generators to supplement the solar power. And, if we look at this as a country or as an industry at large, this is costing the country billions and billions of rands in additional spend every month. And this obviously translates into higher food prices.
Yeah. And in just my last question to you before I let you go, what's just, in just speaking about food security and in the interest of food security, what would be your message to government right now and to Eskom?
Well, Eskom's problems are unique, and I don't believe those can be solved in a heartbeat. But as far as government goes, certainly government could alleviate the problem to some extent by lifting tariffs on basic foodstuffs for at least a period of a year in order to allow the impact of rising fuel costs and also the war in the Ukraine for that to be alleviated. I'll give you an example. I mean, French fry import duties were increased by up to 180% last week only. This has forced the price already in market to jump from 16, 17 rand a kilo to 25 rand yesterday. So this is just one example. And if government were to raise or to suspend those tariffs, well, of course, I mean, that would translate into massively lower prices at the door.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you speaking to us about this, Fred Hume, the MD and founder of Hume International. Thank you for speaking to us this morning.